Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. My name is Jared Budlong. I'm running as an independent candidate for governor here in Alabama. And tonight we have a special live stream. So this is one of our town halls. We do all of our meetings publicly. And a part of that is to be as transparent as possible with what we are talking about as a campaign, what I know of, and what I'm thinking as a gubernatorial candidate, but also so you can learn along with us. The role of governor is to help lead various groups to help send our state in a direction, the direction that the constituents have elected that official to do. And rather than pretending like I know every answer to every question and have a solution for every problem, I am broadcasting these conversations live so that you understand where I'm at, what I'm learning, and you can also comment on those topics as well. So tonight's a special broadcast, one that got me running in the first place, regarding our prison system. So the prison systems in Alabama are so bad that we are being investigated by the Federal Department of Justice. If you're not aware, please go look that up. The court case, I believe, is set for 2024, which is a ridiculously long time to wait. But I can't control that. What we can do is try and make our prisons better once I get into office. So tonight, we're going to talk about Alabama's injustice system, as I've been calling it, with Dr. Elizabeth Hancock, who will be joining us shortly. And we'll have questions from families that are currently affected by the prison industrial complex, the injustice system. So whether they are currently incarcerated and send in a message, or families and friends who have somebody who's in on the inside now, or maybe they've previously been in and they are still being punished potentially, by not having their rights restored, or, any number of reasons that people are still affected by the system, even though they may not be inside, right? So let's switch over the topic at the bottom. And if you have questions, you're welcome to put those in the chat. I am going to put something in the comments. This is a link to join this call. Twitter, you can't see this. Sorry. Go to Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube. But the comment I just posted is a link to join this call. So if you want to have a question that you want to ask me directly, you are welcome to join this call and do so. There is a green room situation. So if you join, you will sit in the green room until I bring you on. We're going to do one at a time, unless it's makes sense to have more than two. You need to know that ahead of time. But we'll have Dr. Hancock on in a second, and then anyone else who wants to ask questions can join in with us. And I believe we are good to go. So unless I get a no-go from Dr. Hancock, I'm going to bring her on. And I think we're set. So we will bring Dr. Hancock on. And I believe we are ready to go. How are you this evening? Ooh, I actually do not hear you. So let me see if that's on my end. It shouldn't be. Everything's turned up, so I should be able to hear you. Oh, there we go.
I'm good. How are you doing?
Perfect. I'm doing pretty well. All things considered, with everything that I learn every time I open a new article or anything else. Other than that, I'm doing well. All right. So this is your town hall essentially. I'm going to let you start asking questions as you want. We do have somebody sitting in the green room, so if you have something you want to ask first, I know you've got a lot of questions, so I want to respect those because people sent them in ahead of time. But you can go ahead and ask one of those, and we'll let them prep, and we'll bring them on in a minute.
Okay. Well, I think a nice opener would be just for you to tell us a little bit about what led to your interest in looking at what the current issues are within the Alabama prison system.
Yeah. So in October of 2021, last year, our state decided to allocate 20% of our COVID relief funds, the federal funds sent down to us to help our state during a pandemic, one that we're not all the way through, but they decided to allocate 20% of that, which for people that aren't aware of the amount, that's about $400 million that was set aside and not sent to relieve the pandemic, and was set aside to build new prison infrastructure, so new facilities. The number of facilities has shifted based on public pressure and pushback, but the final number that I'm aware of as of right now is two. That the contract was signed in, it was May, and the bonds were sold in late June. And construction should start, I believe, next year, maybe then the year after that. But it's coming up pretty quick. That is that's what got me interested, was finding out that we allocated 20% of our COVID relief to build new prisons. And the long and short of it, the excuse the state gives is that they are using a portion of the COVID relief that says you can use it to offset lost revenue. And that's the part that got me um, mad. I'm not sure is the right word, but it's the one we're going to use right now, and got me digging into the system. I am fully aware that my privilege in life has allowed me to not be affected by the prison system as many of our residents have been. And I was unaware of how bad it was. No one thinks prison is good or fun, but it is much worse than I ever knew. And the more I dig, the more I look, the worse it gets. And that turned into me running for office because no one else running wanted to talk about how bad it is.
So when you talk about all of the changes, and we look at all of the issues that are currently going on, what would you like to see for changes as far as things like, let's say, like the parole board?
Yeah, what I would love to see is a parole board that is not dictated by the same people who made the parole board in the first place. So the parole board is chosen primarily by 2/3 of the people who choose the elected or the nominations for the parole board is the legislature, so the House Speaker of the House and the President pro tempore of the Senate, and then also the Lieutenant Governor pick the nominees for the parole board, and then the governor chooses from those. And that for me is problematic since the legislation is the one that set up the parole board in the first place and took that power of paroles and pardons away from the position of the governor and put it in the hands of what is now essentially the hands of the legislature. Uh, Third party or third hand, but it's through the legislature at this point. So long term, I would love to see that change. My goal immediately is to start finding ways to make it represent more of our state. One thing I can't change and I'm aware of is that one of the three members of the board have to have law enforcement experience, and that's 10 years of law enforcement experience in some way. One of the members has to have that much experience in law enforcement. The other two, there's much more leniency on who I select from the pool that is given to me from the three that were mentioned previously. So
So we know that we can't fully change the parole board, not right away. That's a process that will take time. And then we have to also make sure that we meet all of the requirements there. Have you given any thought about some of the other areas that are of a lot of concern, outside of the parole board? There's the safety issues within the prison system, both for those who are incarcerated and those who work there. And that's fine balance on how we maintain that and how we address that. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, so one of the things that our state has been investigated for and is being sued for is how dangerous the prison systems are. And to your point, it's not just that it's dangerous for the employees or the staff, it's dangerous for the incarcerated individuals as well. And that has to change, and it's without some extreme measures, it's something that we are going to have trouble doing. And the state is aware of that because they haven't been able to fill those positions because of how dangerous it is. It's really hard to ask people to come work in a dangerous situation, knowing that they literally could die from coming to work. So my response to that when elected is to bring in the National Guard, just call a state of emergency, bring in the National Guard, and fill the positions that are necessary to make sure everybody can be safe and we can fully maintain the facilities with manpower, but also have some extra oversight so it's no longer a one departmental oversight. There's some extra oversight that isn't things can't be swept under the rug.
Well, and when you talk about sweeping things under the rug, have you given any thought or insight on how to hold the Department of Corrections accountable for using evidence-based programming or actually implementing what their SOP says, what their actual administration regulations are saying they're doing? Their policies say what they do, but versus what they actually do. Do you have a plan on how you would hold them accountable for this?
I'm looking towards, yeah, I'm looking towards working with groups like Alabama Appleseed to come up with effective policies because they've done a lot more research. They've been involved a lot longer in this fight. So we're looking forward to planning things with them and looking to them for some of that guidance specifically. I do not have a plan in place currently.
Okay. Who do you have in mind that could be outside of Appleseed? Appleseed tends to um, they have critics that are concerned
Okay.
about where they may play more politics, and instead of looking at the bigger picture, they tend to look at smaller things.
Okay.
And who else would you have in mind to assist you? Or would you be open to having family members or those who are incarcerated themselves?
Yeah. So having a almost a community approach that points more towards um, a restorative justice style system where we're actually trying to solve for the societal harms that are happening to our state, not just from the original crime, but having people pulled away from their families and things like that. I am more than willing to work with families and previously incarcerated individuals, or even those who are currently in the system, and letting them have a say in how this system is impacting them, because they're still humans that need to be treated and given the dignity that they have a right to, so that they can actually be positively impacted by this system, and not negatively impacted.
Okay. Well, and when you're talking about how people can be positively impacted, and we mentioned a few minutes ago about evidence based programming and holding ADOC accountable for doing what they say they're supposed to do, uh, would you be interested or open to exploring having good time given to all of those who are eligible to return to society? Good time is found to be an evidence based program that's effective,
Yeah, and
especially for
it's
those
currently
that have
coming
very
under
little hope.
yeah, and it's currently coming under some heat. So I want to make sure people are aware. I'm aware of that situation from Bibb County, and uh, yes, good time policies to allow people to offset their time with good behavior or going through courses through education, vocational, various various educational courses, or not just education, but let's say mental health treatment or physical rehab, things like that, and getting them prepped to re-enter into society, into the free world. I'm definitely open to those. And I mentioned Alabama Appleseed again. I have been looking at various organizations. I'm more than willing to talk to any organization who wants to help our incarcerated individuals exit the system that we have in place and not re-enter.
Well, and there are quite a few organizations. There's some that are more formally organized, and then there are quite a few that are grassroots efforts. And a lot of these that are more of the grassroots efforts uh, have a more, let's say, they have more at stake and more involved. It's their actual loved ones, their family members, people that they care about who are incarcerated, who are impacted. And this impacts not only the individual, but it also impacts the family and those that are on the outside.
Right. Yeah. So I'm again more than willing to talk to any organization. So grassroots, fully funded through a federal program, anything else, as long as they're wanting to actually see problems be solved, not just band-aid the solution.
Right. And then I have one last question, and you can, I mean, I'm sure there are others that have a lot of questions. What would
Yeah.
you like to see from us as the family members and those that are incarcerated? What would you like to see from us to help you?
I what I need from you all as family and friends and people that are currently potentially incarcerated, because I know some people are going to be able to access this at some point. I need your honest input, like, because I have very limited experience in this world, and I do not understand the depths at which the system is affecting you. And I want you to know that I understand that, but also I need to understand it better. I'll never be 100% because I haven't been through it, but I want to understand it more so that when I'm making decisions, the weightiness of that impact is something I consider when those decisions are being made.
Thank you for your honesty on that one. I know quite a few of us are very, um, we want to be able to speak. We want to be able to have people hear not only our voices, but the voices of those who are incarcerated.
Yeah. Christina, I'm going to look for a thumbs up if you're ready to jump in. I'll bring in if you're ready. Cool. So we'll bring Christina in and it'll auto arrange on the screen, hopefully. Perfect.
Hello.
All right. So let's do, since we have a slight reorganization, there we go. We can fit everybody on screen.
Okay.
So thank you for jumping in, and I look forward to hearing your question.
I have several actually. I was reading some of the questions in the comments and everything that everybody's doing, and there are a huge thing about the mentality from an inmate, from incarcerated individuals all across the state, where the families are almost as psychologically screwed up now as they are. So would you, as governor, do some kind of support for the families outside of what Alabama, as of course, offers nothing now, but would there be some kind of support group, some kind of programming for families outside of what's established right now?
Yeah, I would love to offer some type of support. So when I mentioned earlier societal harms that are happening, the reason I use that phrase is I believe it's prisonpolicy.org uses it regularly, and I have adopted it after having heard it there, because there are harms that are happening when people are incarcerated that we are not accounting for, generally speaking. So when we think of the harm from a crime, and that whole progression from conviction through incarceration, and then hopefully being put back into society, the harm that people typically talk about is just the person who's been convicted of the crime. Like, oh, well, they did a thing and it caused harm there, and while they were incarcerated, maybe they were there for 10 years, so they did X amount of things, and that caused harm in the society, inside the prison system. And then when they're released, we're worried about the potential harm there. But what most people aren't talking about, you all are fully familiar with this, and it's kind of the point of your question, is that there are harms that are happening to the family and friends while they're incarcerated. So as an example, the one that sticks out to me, because of the 95-ish% official statistics of men that are incarcerated, right? So we have a total population, and we have about 99% men that are incarcerated, which means we have a bunch of families who don't have those men in their lives. And I have to assume that a good chunk of them have dependents. So they have potentially a partner, potentially children that are normally would be relying on them to be in their life, provide monetary support, emotional support, be there as the parental figure. And there is untold harm that's happening. So coming up with a program that helps, I would love to come up with. Haven't gotten there yet, and part of that is talking to you all, because I'm not aware of what all of those harms are and the best way to solve for those. Is it strictly monetary? Is it more probably just re-enabling or re-allowing visitation rights? I know that's a problem currently, so that's one of the things that we would need to reinstigate, or reinstitute, would be visitation rights, and potentially expanding those. There's lots of stuff we'd like to look at.
Well, I will tell you that one of the major problems that I have experienced over this past month talking to families is the fact that the aggression, the anger from inmates not being able to see their families, of course, but it's also they have no hope. There's no incentive for half of them. And I would love to be able to see someone implement that. Unless you have life without parole, there's no reason for incentive time to not count. You're literally building a community of someone who could control behavior over a 5-year period versus you give them a 20-year sentence day for day. What does that man or female have to look forward to? 20 years there. I mean, 20 years is a long time, but in Alabama, you have to serve a third of your sentence. So versus 7 years, 6.5, whatever, if you have something to look forward to, and the incentive time is a huge thing right now because these men have no hope and they're taking it out on their families. So we all are about to lose our minds dealing with them on a daily basis because that's our loved ones. That's who we're supporting. But it is, you're talking hundreds of thousands of people here who have, we're tired of it. We're sick of it and we want something done. So that's the kind of change that we're looking for. I know I am, and I speak for everybody that I've talked to, that, you know, the laws that have been put in place and where the attorney general is trying to take incentive time away from everybody. I'm not going to say that every crime, I mean, the crime never fits the punishment, never does, never has. You have people that are in there for 80 years and 90 years that have a victimless crime, that are first-time offenders. Sentencing has got to be done something about. I mean, you're asking to take on a lot, and it's all thrown at you at one time. And how do you not put your personal feelings in it? Because other candidates have put personal feelings, and it turned into more damage control than it did campaigning. And we want somebody who's willing to step up and be for Alabama, not just for the prison system. Prison system's horrible. It's horrible. That's not the only thing. And I do talk a lot, so I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You're not wrong. The prison system is what got me so frustrated, and the phrase I keep using is pissed off, that I decided to run. And that's where my passion is. That's the thing that I tend to focus on if I'm going to do research. Like, it ends up being the prison system, because that's where that passion is. The other two for the campaign, just so everybody's aware, because I don't know who all's watching this at this point, the other two main key points of my campaign are healthcare and education, and both of those are tied back into the prison system. Like, all three of those are related. Both of the other two can feed into the prison system if they're not taken care of, but also we need to get better access to both of the healthcare and education in the prison system, so that we can help keep people alive while they're there, but also prep them to be released as well. So I 100% agree. How am I going to keep my personal feelings out of it? Doing things like this, and then getting people in my cabinet and the other positions that I can appoint, things like the commissioner. We're talking about the prison system specifically. You know, the commissioner of the Department of Corrections. It's an appointed position. That's somebody else I can bring in, and that person should be someone who cares about the system and knows the impact that it's having, the negative impact that it's having. Because we are currently focusing, I think, a little too much on the. I don't want to use the word positive impact, but we have for-profit prisons. So to some people, there is a positive impact for our prison system.
Yes.
I don't consider that a positive impact, but
it's a business.
It's the opposite. Yeah, it's a business, and I think that's way too much of a focus currently.
Well, let me ask you this. I watched an interview that you did on TikTok not long ago, and you were against the lottery personally, but you said that if Alabama as a whole wanted it, you would push for it. And you were talking about the allocation of the funds.
Well, I would sign it. I'm not a huge fan, and that comes up regularly. And we can dive into it. But I want to correct one thing. I'll never push for one. But if the state says that they want one, and I mean the people say they want one, then the legislature will have to pass it, and then I'll sign it. Sure.
Which is why I asked about your personal. If it's something that the state as a whole wants. And you being for the people of Alabama, of course, you're always going to have certain organizations who don't want it here. And I know your personal reasons why, but do you want to explain again why you do not want one, so they understand your side of it?
Yeah, I'll happily go through my understanding. Yeah, because it sounds highbrow, I guess, to say like, no, we're not going to have the lottery. Like, I don't believe it's a good source of revenue for the state. I'm not opposed to anyone who wants to gamble. If you want to have a lottery in the state and you want to be able to have gambling, I say go for it. I don't think the state should run the lottery in an effort to provide social welfare programs. So better healthcare, better education. The short answer is that if we are trying to help everyone. The idea is that the people that don't have money now, those who are impoverished, are trying to get access to healthcare and education. And the lottery system, because of the way it's set up, it disproportionately has our impoverished communities spending their income on the lottery, which then is supposed to be funding them to get better education and healthcare. So I don't think it's a good solution for the state to run the lottery in an effort to do social welfare programs. Statistically, it doesn't benefit those that we're trying to help in the long run.
Okay, and you said something about taxes being like the education for taxes, and I will jump all over the place. I'm sorry. Um, it's just one thing reminds me of another. But the taxes itself, you said, are not allocated appropriately across the state, where poverty-stricken communities are getting that amount to their school systems, and
Mm-hmm.
then like Shelby County, because you referred to Shelby County, which is of course a higher status area, they're providing
Right.
more for their areas. How would you fix that? Like, how would you allocate it to be equal across the board?
Yeah, we have to review the way the actual education budget is distributed, and a part of that is in the Constitution, so I can't just fix it, but we would have to push for that, or bring in revenue from a new place that can then be determined where it goes. And again, that I'm open to other solutions for revenue. Again, I think I've mentioned in other videos, taxing a taxing large companies who are here to exploit our either physical resources of our state, the ground, like the resources, or exploit our people. They come here to hire cheap labor, and then for some reason we decide to give them tax breaks, but we're not actually helping the people at that point because we still have them working below the poverty line. So looking into revenue sources like that, where people are still getting jobs and they're being brought up from the poverty level, but we're also bringing revenue into the state, are situations that I would like to look at for revenue rather than something like the lottery.
Gotcha. I think Elizabeth has some more questions. I'm gonna shut up for a minute.
Yeah.
Well, and I've had several people message me some questions about would there be able to be an oversight committee developed for the Department of Corrections and for the parole board, and would you allow family members of those who are incarcerated to be on the committees?
Yeah, the parole board kind of has unilateral control currently. We can have oversight. The director of the the director of the Bureau of Pardons and Paroles kind of has that role already, but that role has their hands tied behind their back to do anything effective. It's more of an oversight and hey, we really should be doing X. But when it comes down to actually issuing pardons or parole, there's no real control there. It's literally up to the board, and to the to such an extreme that the board doesn't even have to justify when they deny paroles or pardons. Um, Frustratingly, they are forced to give an excuse when they do give a parole or pardon. They're, it's backwards in my head, but that's the way that's the way the system is currently set up. To more directly answer the question, yes, family, friends, even previously incarcerated individuals, like we have to get the system to better represent the people that it's affecting. So family, friends, previously incarcerated, all of them should have the opportunity to be on the committee or board, whatever we want to call that group of people.
Well, and kind of along the lines of an oversight committee, what about, would there be a system put into place to track correctional officers who have a history of abuse or aggression towards those who are incarcerated? Would there be a system put in place to hold those individuals accountable, figure out who they are, and what would you like to see done?
Yeah, I would love for them to never be able to be put in front of people again, where they're in that situation of control and power. If the flawed experiment, the experiment from the Stanford prison experiments, if that taught us anything, it does not take much for certain types of people to go to the extreme with a short period of time when they are given even fake power. So I would love to see some type of oversight, and if that is something that we I believe the commissioner or the director of the um, Department of Corrections, we should be able to implement that. I don't see why we wouldn't. I'm still trying to read through all of the code of 1975 to figure out what we can and can't actually do, but I haven't found anything that says we can't yet. Uh, Not through any of the changes, even some of the ones from 2021. It looks like we still can set some of those rules up. And I think the
Okay.
commissioner is the one that would be over that, if I remember correctly.
Right.
But
And a lot
the
of
qualifications there. Oh yeah, let me follow up a little bit. The qualifications is something that I would want to speak to, uh, not just family and friends and those who are incarcerated, but also psychologists and other specialists who would understand things that everyday people wouldn't think to look for, right? Red flags, so to speak.
and that's pretty much where I was headed next because at this time we don't really know um, exactly how Department of Corrections is choosing who they hire, who they don't hire, let alone how they're providing training. There are standards that they use, but Alabama uses their own standards. They do not use national standards nor accreditation standards, uh, which leads
And that's
to
hoping
a
they
lack
follow
of,
their own standards.
yeah, well, and they don't follow their own standards, they don't follow their own policies. So,
Right.
how do we expect those that are in charge of keeping our people safe and protecting them and helping rehabilitate them to make a difference, to help, and instead of abuse?
Can you ask that question one more time? I think I cut out, or you did.
How can we work with improving the training and improving the standards and actually following these standards,
Yeah. So
the
again,
policies?
another situation with an oversight board of some type, but also following external standards, not just something that we create as a company. That seems rife for abuse, to come up with your own policies for, what a good correctionals officer is. That seems like it would need much bigger oversight than just your own department.
Right. And there are many of those that do have expertise, that have experience, that have the knowledge, and our state is filled with people that could help. Uh,
Yeah.
are we using those people? Are we accessing them, using them as resources? No.
Yeah. Not currently. There are a couple questions that have come through TikTok, so I want to answer a few of them because they should be easy answers. So, uh, incarcerated individuals are being paid 33 cents to $1.40 per hour, I assume is what we're saying there. That's higher than I've ever heard. So, I've always heard 15 to 23 cents per hour. So that's higher, but am I committed to changing that? The answer is yes. Uh, I would love to go where they are actually being paid the real value of the labor that they're providing, above and beyond the minimum wage that we offer in the state of Alabama, which is the federal minimum wage. But I would love to offer them the actual value of that labor. And a part of that goes to what we talked about earlier with Christina about helping the families that are on the outside. Part of that's monetary. So if we can set up a way to pay them for their labor while they are currently incarcerated, and they can use that to then pay off fines and fees, the ones that make sense. Some of those need to get rid of, but we also would have a way of having them save that up so that they can have it when they're released, but also help sustain their family that's on the outside. So I hope that answered that question for you, Red Rabbit. And then there's another quick one. I hope. Let's go back to it real quick. Am I committed to ending the death penalty in Alabama? I don't have any direct control over that from what I'm aware, but I would love to get rid of the death penalty. Point blank, yes. I don't think we should be in the business of killing people as a state. So, yes. And I think that's all of the questions on TikTok. There are a few that have come through on Facebook that my campaign manager has sent over to me. So let me check those real quick. If the lottery passes, will I allow that money to go towards prisons? I might need more clarification, but my gut instinct says no. Like we should be trying to find a way to not be putting more money towards prisons. Is my general goal is to make less use of the prison system. There's a much longer answer to that, but I want to make sure I'm heading the right direction before I go further. What will you do to ensure that medical staff are doing their job and see people in a timely manner? And that has to do with the oversight board we were talking about earlier with Dr. Hancock. We've got to find a better way to actually have oversight over everybody, not just the medical staff. Although currently I'm fully aware of how bad that is. Let's see. Will you implement a program that will track correctional officers that past abuse? We already answered that one. Will you implement oversight on ADOC so they will allow family members of the incarcerated to be on the committee? I think we answered that. That's a yes. Will you be willing to implement pay? Yes, for labor for those who are incarcerated. And will you evaluate everyone that has been incarcerated over 10 years to consider for release? That is actually the first thing I want to do when I am in office. The first plan is to find every currently incarcerated individual who is convicted of a victimless crime, as Christina mentioned earlier, and find the safest and quickest route to get them out of the system while not leaving them helpless. The phrase that is used regularly is we give them a bus ticket and a $10 bill and let them be on their way. And that is not enough support to keep them from being a part of our recidivism statistics. So, Christina, do you have one more question? So you're still hanging out. You want to ask one more? You good? Okay, one more. All right, let me bring Christina back in, and then I think we have somebody else. Amira,
I'm just here watching anyway.
All right, Christina, go ahead.
I was messaging Elizabeth so she could have asked it for you. What is your thought? Because you have all these questions about everybody wanting minimum wage increase. Me personally, I think that if minimum wage increased, so is cost of living, so it kind of it defeats purpose. So what is your thoughts on the increase of minimum wage?
Yeah. So the rebuttal there would be the cost of living is going up anyway, even though we haven't increased the minimum wage. So they're not as tied as people tend to think they are. They can be related, but generally they're separate. They're separate pieces. We have general inflation that's going up anyway. The Federal Reserve tries to keep it at 2%, 2 to 4% every year. So if we're not increasing our wages by 2 to 4%, you're actually getting paid 2 to 4% less every year that we don't increase your minimum wage. So there's the problem, that problem there. The amount is the tricky part. And generally speaking, I would love to see a system that is in place that looks at the cost of living for your area, let's say at a county, maybe city level, that the minimum wage lets people live in that area, whether it's the county or the city, and it's reevaluated every year. And it's something we would have to implement slowly. I'm fully aware. Don't have a plan in place, but that's what I would like to see. Our state, our legislature has fought against that very hard. So I don't know that they would be willing to try that, but I would love to see it happen.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you for coming on and asking a few questions. I know we've got a ton more to go through, and we're gonna get through as many as we can, and I will stay as late as long as I am coherent. We will try to go as late as I can, and as long as Dr. Hancock can hang out. So, Christina, thank you for jumping on, and I'm gonna let somebody else back on. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Amira, if you're ready, I'll look for a thumbs up, and then we'll bring you up. It looks like you're ready. Cool. All right, and let's see if we can get this to where it's vertical. There we go.
Hi, thank you for having me. Just a few questions back in regards to the prison system. And I apologize, I came in a little bit late, so this question was already addressed. I do apologize. One of my first questions is for CEOs that abuse their position, such as beating the inmates and or being harsh to the inmates. How can you ensure that they're properly punished? Because many times the CEOs attempt to murder the inmates, give unjust. Their behaviors are unjust in the prison system. So how can we get these COs to be properly punished? Because a lot of times it is their own coworkers, the other COs, the lieutenants, the sergeants, however the chain of command goes, that are the ones who are deciding whether or not they committed a crime against the inmates, rather they attempted to murder the inmates, rather they beat the inmates, so how can we make sure that these COs are being properly punished for their crimes and behaviors?
So there's kind of, I think this is a two-parter question, whether you intended it to be or not. So I'm going to hit the first part first. So part of it is oversight and making sure we're actually tracking those incidents properly. So my immediate reply would be to create a reporting system that is twofold. It goes to an internal team at the state of Alabama. So whether that's Department of Corrections or somewhere else, doesn't really matter at this point. It would go to somewhere in the state, but it would also go to somewhere in the federal level. So the reporting mechanism would be would have oversight outside of our state. So it would go somewhere like the Department of Justice, because I'm sure they would love to hear about all of this that's happening.
Oh, they know.
Well, I mean, the second part of this, though, is that it would be open for inmates and staff. So as reports are happening, or sorry, as incidents happen, staff and inmates would be able to report those, and all of that goes to both departments. And then how to handle it, it would go back to, I think it was one of the first questions, so you may have missed it. My way to handle the current staffing and danger levels is to declare a state of emergency and bring in the National Guard, so we have enough manpower to actually maintain the systems and ensure everybody's safety, both existing staff and the incarcerated individuals.
Right. So right now, with the state of the prison system, the dangers that I guess that the prison is having with keeping employment, how would you then recruit how would you recruit officers? Because right now there are many days and nights that the prisons are understaffed. There are nights where there's been times when there are fires in the dorms and no COs around. As a freedom fighter, I have had calls, there's a fire and nobody's in the building at all. Inmates shouldn't have to have that kind of concern on whether or not this fire is going to get larger with them being stuck in their cell, incidents like that, So what is your plan for recruitment for COs for the safety of those behind the wall for situations such as that?
We have to get it under control first and then address how we're going to get people in, because once it's under control, the hiring process becomes a little easier because there is less danger for those coming into the system. Regarding hiring practices, we have to start attracting individuals who are there to treat people humanely and aren't just there for the paycheck. And that's a tough question. Some people have suggested having psychological exams and things like that. I'm not opposed to having those, but that alone isn't going to solve the problem. If we reference the Sanford prison experiment, normal everyday people turn into animals very quickly when they're given unfettered power. Right. So we have to do something other than just take a psych eval every so often. But
right.
The control aspect, we have to get it under control first before we can even attempt to figure out how to hire people, because no one, as you mentioned, no one's going to want to. It doesn't matter. Even if you pay people an exorbitant amount of money, that is not the right person to bring into that system, because they are literally just there to make money at that point, and that is not going to add to the safety of the situation.
I'm just curious, what is the current requirements to become an officer? Do you know?
It is not much. It's like a
high school diploma.
I believe it's a high school diploma. Yeah.
A GED.
Yeah, high school diploma and a willingness to come work in a very dangerous situation for, generally speaking, a decent amount of pay.
What is the training therefore afterwards someone is hired?
That I'm not sure offhand.
So would you suggest then that maybe a proper training program is implemented, or even requirements of further, an education, not that education necessarily ensures, the proper person is hired or the proper training within the education is given, but, not that someone with just a GED or a high school diploma is not capable of performing the job, but I mean, there has to be some type of job training, some type of education to perform, many jobs. And if it's just, here you're 18, you can do the job, you're old enough, you're willing to come into this type of environment. I mean, I mean, that's part of the problem that we're seeing with some of these CEOs that are just walking into this environment, that's already filled with so many problems and issues already at hand. We're just feeding them. We're giving these guys expecting them to be not cared for, but to be looked over, I guess you could say, with unskilled individuals, I mean, because there's so many issues at hand already that these guys have to deal with, and to deal with individuals who don't really, let's just be real, give a fuck about what's going on with these guys. I mean, like, you're just throwing fuel to the fire, So I was just curious about
we
that.
mentioned earlier implementing standards and training that is a curriculum that's created outside of the state. So we would be looking at national reference or national standards and programs for training that our state isn't dictating, because that doesn't seem to be working, right? So we're
Right.
The standards we have, if we're following them, aren't resulting in a positive way on our corrections officers. So we would need to have something. Yeah. There's a couple questions that have shown up. Taylor, I'm going to bring you in. Amira, do you have another quick question, or can I bring
I
in
do have
my
another quick
campaign
question. For those paroles that were denied, because we do know that the amount of denials are outstanding and ridiculous. For those that were denied, do you have any plans to come back and have those paroles revisited, in a more timely manner than the 5 years that they were set off, the 10 years that they were set off, or way sooner than what they were set off for reasons that are unjust at the current time?
Yeah, my understanding of the current situation is the Board of Pardons and Paroles has final say on how that works. There are some maximums that they can't go past, but they are allowed to have unilateral control over that. The closest I can do is commute sentences. Unfortunately, that doesn't give rights back. So it would let somebody get out of the system, but they wouldn't be able to potentially vote or have access to whatever other right was taken away from them. That is a part of the plan for who we want to get out of the system as quickly as possible, which is going to lead into the question I'm going to answer in a second. So, Jay-Z, I see you and I hear you. I'll get to it in a minute. But the actual delay is completely up to the Board of Pardon and Paroles, from everything that I've read, at least. Everything that's in the Code of Alabama for that entire part of our government, it's up to them.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
I will happily put pressure on them, but I can't force them, unfortunately.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of pressure already on them and they don't do anything. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All righty. I mean, I can go on with questions. So, okay. Thank you.
If I don't answer them or you want to talk more, there is a way to schedule a meeting on my website. So please do that if you want to ask more.
Oh, I definitely will then. Thank you.
Cool. You're welcome. All right. Taylor, I'm bringing you on, and I'm going to try and reply back to Jay-Z because I know he wants me to answer. Let's see. There's two. So you mentioned that you don't think that the incarcerated care about the increase in minimum wage if they're not being paid. It was a qualifying statement. The plan is to actually pay them for their labor. So the minimum wage increase would affect them as well. So that's the first one. And then the other one was regarding who was getting released. Again, I'm still looking into the statistics that have been brought up about those who are less likely to reoffend. I'm happy to relook at those accounts as well. So if the concern is about releasing only victimless crimes, those are the ones that I am currently have been looking at, but I'm more than happy to continue researching the likelihood of violent crimes, because that's a broad term that covers more things than most people are aware of. Happy to look at those cases as well, as long as they are less not likely to reoffend and end up back in the system again. So I'm hoping that addresses your question, Jay-Z. If not, ask and I'll try to clarify further. So Taylor, I think you had some questions.
Yeah. So could you possibly clarify what the benefit of and why the National Guard would be the best option for calling in.
Yeah. So the National Guard, we have more than enough people in the Guard to man every position plus some. So we'd have the ability to cycle out every 60 days, I believe, is the procedure. They have to be cycled out. So they, because they're on reserve, they're not meant to be in a position full time. So we have about 4,000 people that are in reserves as of the numbers that are reported publicly. And we only need about 3,200, I think, in the facilities to fully staff. And we're currently officially at about 1,200, if those numbers are accurate. And my hope is to fill the necessary roles with the National Guard so that we can run our facilities efficiently and not be short staffed. So there's buildings that are on fire in the middle of the night with no one present, or guards that are sleeping and not paying attention to the situation that's happening, where people end up getting beaten, stabbed, doing drugs, so on and so forth. And the other added benefit of having the National Guard is that we then have, again, external oversight. So it is no longer just the Department of Corrections who is responsible for the situation. We now have an external party who has oversight, so that things don't get swept under the rug again.
And then I know you've answered this before, but your plan for programs to help rehabilitate and reduce repeat offenders.
Yeah, so specific programs, looking into actually expanding the ones that are currently on paper being offered, whether or not they are offered in the amount that they're supposed to is in question. A lot of people that are involved in the system are fully aware and say that they aren't being offered even at the levels that are officially stated, which those levels aren't enough either. So we need to increase those in the first place, but we also need to bring in other programs that are accessible to everybody. Because as someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Christina mentioned that a lot of the programs are only offered to individuals who are closer to that ending period. And Dr. Hancock, it may have been you who said it, and so sorry if it was you. But a lot of the programs are only offered once you reach a certain percentage over your or a certain percentage of your sentence. So if you're sentenced for 10 years, it's you have to wait 7 years or whatever it is. And even some of the other candidates have mentioned, waiting until the last year before they're released to let them go through a program. Well, if somebody's in a 10-year sentence, they've got 9 years of hopeless. Like, why would they care? You have more work to do in that last year if you don't give them anything the first 9 years. So it would start at admittance. Like the point of this system should be getting somebody to a point where they can be brought back into society, not just in a box and then like, oh, well, let's try to fix it right before they leave. Like that should be the whole point of the system. And I'm aware that I can't implement all of this day one, but that's the end goal, is to rethink the entire point of the justice system.
We also have the question of overcrowding. Can there be an evaluation of all incarcerated to determine who is and who can, who is who and who can be released? And then I do think that leads into all of Jay-Z Trey's comments, which I think you said you wanted to address.
Yeah,
on Facebook.
I tried to address Jay-Z's earlier. Can you restate yours though? I don't know.
Oh yeah,
cut out on.
It says, I still want to question on the overcrowding. That's one of the major issues. Can there be an evaluation of all the incarcerated people to determine who is who and who can be released?
Yes. So that was kind of the point of what I mentioned, the thing I want to do first day. I am qualifying it and trying to narrow down the scope. So yeah, I'm happy to look at everybody, but there have to be some that aren't needing to be released. What those crimes are, I have to rely on people that are more familiar with those crimes. So that's something I can't exactly speak on. That's why I have currently been saying victimless crimes. And Jay-Z points out that that's not the only people that should be released. So I'm happy to take input back on those and find more crimes that are likely to be safe to bring people back into society.
Yeah. Would it be easy to say, and this is, easy to say, those cases who are, like drug related, that are more easy to evaluate?
Yeah, I can't necessarily say that, because we'd have to look at the full case.
Yeah.
So somebody may have been convicted of a crime that involves drugs, but it also may have been,
That's true. Yeah.
may have also been murder or something else that's also involved. Although I would hope that that's the murder one would be the one that's listed. But again, we would want to look at those who are less likely to reoffend, and the victimless crimes are the ones that I was going to start with. But I'm taking Jay-Z's point very seriously on the recidivism rate for seemingly more dangerous crimes, but they are one-time crimes. So the example usually is a crime of passion. Like if something happens, it was done out of passion. It wasn't something that they're going to do regularly, so they're less likely to reoffend. So.
Also, Jay-Z said guardsmen are National Guardsmen are by no means qualified to work in prisons. Do you see this as dangerous? I mean,
potentially, but less dangerous than the current situation. No, they have a different set of rules that they have to follow as guardsmen. So they may not be currently trained, and every one of them may not be currently trained for that, but they definitely have more. I want to think of the right word for it. Restraint is probably the right word. They have to follow a different set of ethics as guardsmen. So whether or not their training is up to the standards that we're planning to put in place, this is more of what I call like a tourniquet situation. Is it ideal? No, but the idea is that we're trying to stop any more death and get the system back in a place where we can move forward rather than continuously just bleeding out and letting people die.
I may have put words in his mouth, Jay-Z, if you can clarify. I said National Guardsmen, but he just said guardsmen. Amanda said that maybe he just meant the guards that are there now. So
I took it as National Guardsmen too.
I did too. Okay. Skadios.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
I
think
Dr. Hancock
he meant
nodding,
that.
That's
okay. Okay, sorry.
He meant the
I think
National Guard.
read
He
that
was
correctly.
not talking about. Yeah. You did.
Yeah.
Okay, Amanda.
But we've already covered the current guardsmen. The current guardsmen are not trained to the standards that we would need them trained to anyway. So, okay. So let's see. It should be continuous education at least every 2 years. Yeah, well, that's specific, so we'll have to. It's not a question. That's a statement. Sorry, I thought it was a question. Taylor, go ahead. Do you have anything else?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. No, I think that's it for now.
Okay.
I will raise my hand.
I don't have anything else on TikTok that are questions. Cool. Put it in the stream chat. All right, Dr. Hancock, let you get back to some of your abundance of questions, I'm sure.
Well, and some of mine are coming from the chat as well. I think when they are talking about the violent offenders or victimless crimes or things like that, I think people are more interested in hearing about if we look at just what placed somebody into prison. That's not the same person as who they are today, is not who they were 10 years ago or 5 years ago.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that people are wanting to know is what are the parameters are you going to look at? What about those that have had nothing happen while being incarcerated? What about those that have turned around and have had issues while they are incarcerated? And then you also have those who are wrongly convicted. There's quite a few of those as well. I mean, I know we've had that discussion before.
Right.
But then how do you evaluate people like this that are incarcerated if they haven't been given the opportunity to participate in any kind of rehabilitation?
Right. So I'll start with the difference between those who have been convicted of a crime that is less likely to reoffend. So I'm gonna default back to let's say a strictly drug charge. If that's the starting point. It's not the qualifying standard, but it's, hey, someone was convicted of marijuana possession. Okay, that in and of itself, they should no longer be here. So let's look at those cases. Now, what they've done since they've been in will be a part of that process. Exact qualifications, that is not something I'm qualified to make those decisions on. So we'll be bringing in, again, psychologists, people who have been involved in the prison system previously and are trying to get people out. I'll say that, and having them come up with that plan. I'm here to come up with the team so that they can properly address this situation. The goal, though, is to start with those that their crime in and of itself means they shouldn't be here now. So that's why I'm starting with those, and that's why I default to those situations, because those are the ones that, no matter, or if all things else were equal, they shouldn't be here currently. So let's make sure that they're out if they should still be as of today. If we want to look at false convictions, that is something that I do not feel qualified to make a statement on, other than if we can show that they shouldn't be there, yes, let's get them out. How we determine that, I don't feel comfortable saying currently. I would much rather talk to, we'll say, lawyers, and also those who are currently incarcerated. So like if they have been falsely convicted and they're in, they understand the pitfalls of the system better than we do, I hear, out in the free world.
Right. Well, and I had somebody ask me about the organization Vocal, and that they often they send their people to the parole hearings, and they speak out against everybody being released or being granted parole. How would you try to counteract that, especially because several of these advocates that they send are known for giving false information during the parole hearings?
With the concern of adding more bureaucracy, part of my want is to make sure that they are actually speaking to the families that are that they say they're representing, and I am trying to find an answer for how to do that without delaying people's hearings. So finding a way to make sure they're actually speaking on behalf of those families is a part of what I would like to do. I'm not familiar with the false information. So this is turning into a question back at you at this point, but the false information, is that about the case or about the victims and their families and what they have been saying? What types of false information are we?
Oftentimes it's a mixture, where families who have gone to their loved ones' parole hearings are reporting that the person or the advocate from Vocal is saying that their loved one has not participated in any programs, when in fact they have, and they have certificates to prove that they have participated in programs, but the advocate is saying that they have not. Additionally, other are that they will say that they've spoken with the victims and that the victim does not want the person released. However, much similar to the situation last week, the victim's family there was opposed to the execution. Well, we have victims' families that will be for release, but the Vocal person will deny that. As well as I say she, but they have been known to heckle or bully those who come to the parole hearings, the family members.
I'm assuming the heckling is not inside the hearings. It's a prior and before, or is that during the hearings?
I believe it's prior and immediately after.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, the hearings, man, there should be a mechanism in place. If there's not, that I would love to implement a mechanism for providing false information and barring that individual or that group from testifying again for an undetermined amount of time. But I'm not going to say ever, because that could be abused, but finding some way to actually have repercussions for lying in front of the hearing, in front of the board. I'm surprised that's not already an option. And if it is, and I'm not aware of it, please tell me, and I'll look into that further. But that would be my immediate gut response.
Okay.
There's a question that came up. I think I want to answer, Sandy. Will you allow incarcerated to attend their own parole hearings and speak for themselves? If that were up to me, the answer is yes. My understanding is that is something that the board has to approve as a change in the process. The director can suggest it, but they have to approve that change. So if I could, yes, and I will happily push for that, and hopefully any changes in the board will want to see that as well.
So there was another question that was asked about removing the exception clause of the 1901 Alabama Constitution, Article 1, Section 32. I would like to see if he would elaborate a little bit on it.
I believe that is the not so abolishment of slavery clause, if I'm not mistaken. Jay-Z, if you can clarify, because I think that's the I don't want to go off memory, but I'm pretty sure that's what we're talking about, is the 1901 Alabama Constitution, Section 1, Clause 31, is the state claiming to have abolished slavery, but leaving open the involuntary servitude aspect. And I would love to get rid of that. It is a part of a constitution, so I can't, but I would love to see that change. If we want to be controversial, I would love to see the entire Constitution rewritten, because it is steeped in white supremacy. So that's a whole other conversation. If somebody wants to talk about it, we can do that on another video. But it is steeped in white supremacy. So the whole thing is problematic at best.
Yeah, and I want to jump back to the parole real quick, because Sherry mentioned that that the vocal people will turn and speak rudely to the family members about their loved ones, but the family cannot speak back at all. And they've been known to be very harsh towards children that have come up there, or younger, maybe children of those who are incarcerated. They may be older, they may not look like kids, they may be a teenager, or something like that. But it is a big issue. And
I need to look further into the limitations on who's allowed into the hearings. I'm aware of the incarcerated individuals not being allowed in themselves, but what the limitations are on who's allowed in, or what those procedures are, based off memory, I'm going to give that big fat caveat. Based off memory, it is, again, all the processes are related to parole and pardon hearings is subject to the board. So the director, somebody that I can appoint, can make those suggestions on changes, but it's up to that board to accept those changes and allow that to happen. For instance, the thing that I would love to see change is more details on their deliberation. Like when they take on all the evidence and all three of them go behind closed doors and have a discussion, I would love more transparency to happen there. Currently, there's none, and we have no idea this is not an accusation, but they could go back there, drink some coffee, and go, yeah, we're not doing this, right? Okay, cool. And then, wait 10 minutes and then go back out and say, yeah, we've reviewed all the evidence, and no, you're not getting out. And we don't know, because there's no transparency there. So I would love to see that change. My understanding is the board has to accept those changes.
Right. Well, and I believe they do have to accept those changes. There's a question asking if they follow the Roberts Rules of Orders. I don't think that they have to, again, because they just have guidelines that they are supposed to follow, but it's not a requirement. It's not something that they have to follow. And they don't take minutes either. They have a form of minutes, but they are not verbatim, word for word, of a transcript of what actually is said and how the deliberation happens. or how decisions are made. And they don't always include how many vote in which manner for the individuals.
Right. The only time they have to give an excuse is if they approve the parole request or the pardon request. Then they have to give an excuse. But
right. And they very often are very inaccurate as to who was there and what was said while there. And this is coming from many, many families who are reporting their experiences after coming back, that right now most people have no hope when it comes to parole.
Yeah, the approval percentage and the denial percentage switched at about 2018, I believe. It went from a 20% denial and 80% approval rating, or not rating, but approval percentage, and flipped in a year to 20% approval and about 80% denials. And that is a problematic shift. Nothing there should not be a reason that every pardon and parole request drastically shifted that much. So there's something else happening, and I would love to get to the bottom of it. There are some interesting ways we could affect the parole board. It's not 100% up to me, but we can push for some change there.
Well, I know we've thrown a lot at you, and I know I have tons more questions because I've sent you a lot of questions from us, but we've covered a lot, and I'm trying to go based off of what other people are saying in the comments, and I know you've had people sending you questions.
Right.
But I also know that you have limited time dedicated.
I can keep going. Whether or not the rest of my team can keep going is a different question. But I will happily stay if anybody in the comments still has questions. Like I literally blocked off till 10 o'clock. So if you all want to stay here, I can. I can stay for another 45 minutes at least and keep going if there are questions you want to ask.
Okay. Well, and I think one thing that's important for all of us that are impacted by the prison system here in Alabama, I think it's important for us to know about where you stand, what makes you care, and how do we know you're going to actually do what you're wanting to do, and then what do we need to do from here, because we've all been trying to fight and work together, and it's been a struggle for us because it's I think it's been brought up a few times that a lot of families don't have the financial means. Income has been dropped, hefty fines and fees have to be paid, and then it's very expensive to have somebody incarcerated. So we want to fight and we want to do stuff, but what all can we do?
I'll try to answer the first question first, which is, why do I care? There is I don't want to use the term catchphrase because that's too flippant, but there is a phrase that I've been using, and it's in the signatures of my emails. And it is that I know every human has a right to live their life with dignity. And that I use the term every and human very intentionally. Some people have given me some flack for being too broad, but if I start narrowing that down and adding qualifiers, I will inevitably leave somebody out. And I mean that to be every human being. I do not care what you've done. You are a human that deserves to live out that life with dignity. It's something that you have the right to, and you need to respect that. And by dignity, I mean dignity in your own life, also other people respecting that dignity as well. And that ties back into somebody's question earlier about the death penalty. What most people don't think about is that we are all, as people, a product of our time and society that we've been raised in. So there are some physical characteristics that influence that, but we we do not, as a society, try to care for people to keep them from entering into the prison system. That is not how we treat the system as a whole. We treat it as a punishment system. It's a punitive punishment system. It's intended to be a reactionary system. My end goal is long term. How quickly we can get there is kind of dependent on our state legislature and you, the people, continuing to push for better representatives in office. I understand it's very hard, but it's not just on the governor's seat. But we have to get to where we are treating people as humans, so that we don't use the prison system. We use it less and less all over time, because currently we are using it more and more over time, which for some reason isn't clicking. It's kind of like the frog in the pot of water. It starts in cold and you turn on the heat and it eventually boils because they don't realize it's taken too long. I think we've been so indoctrinated into this thought process that the prison system does what it's supposed to do, meaning solve for crime, what we think it's supposed to. And we don't realize that we are now incarcerating more people per capita than, in our state at least, than any other country. Like, per capita, we are in the 900s, at least as of 2017 numbers. We're incarcerating 900 for every 100,000, and the next closest country is in the, going off memory at this point, but I want to say it's about 200 per capita. Like, it's nowhere near. And there are only a few states that are in the country that are below that number. And we think that it does one thing, which is solve crime, or not solve crime, but prevent crime. But it doesn't in the long run. So like that's you have no reason to trust me, and I'm aware of that. You all don't know me, and I can't expect you to know every aspect of me and be able to trust everything I say. What I'm asking for is you to give me a shot, and if I don't do what I'm saying I'm supposed to do, kick me out at that point. Like, I don't have a better response than that. You can't trust, we can't trust any politician. I don't blame you. Like, there's very good reasons not to trust anybody running for office. I'm not sure I have a better answer than that.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you knew people who are incarcerated will get to be able potentially to see this somehow. Family members will share it with them. They may tell them about it. If you, and this is a question that was in the box, if you could speak to all of those who are incarcerated, the men and the women in the Alabama system right now, what would you want them to know about your plan? And I want to also know, what do you want them to know about you?
Outside of what I just said about wanting it to be a completely different system, I think I started to kind of answer that before the question got asked. But I mean, that if I can speak to everybody that's currently incarcerated, whether they see it tomorrow or later, I see you, and I know that you're a human and that you deserve all the respect and dignity that everyone else does. Regardless of what you've done, it doesn't change the fact that you're a human being, and our society is partially responsible for where you ended up. I'm not going to say 100%, because we all have some control over our own actions, but there is a good chunk that indirectly was not your decision. The things the environment you were raised in may have dictated some of the outcome of your life, and I don't believe you should be punished for that entirely. I think society should be apologizing to you, and that's partly why I'm here.
I appreciate you saying that, and the reason why I wanted to ask that is so that those of us can tell our loved ones and then tell others about you, so that they
Please do.
understand what you are about.
If I can make a shameless plug, I'm running as an independent. I don't think we covered that at the very beginning. So I'm running as an independent candidate, and I'm running as a write-in, which means I need a bunch of people to learn how to spell my name. And if you can vote currently, or you can vote by October 24th, learn how to spell my name and write it in. And the nice part about our state, the one thing that I am thankful for that I've found starting to run this race, is you can still do a straight party ballot, meaning I just want Republicans. There's a big checkbox at the top, or it says you fill in the circle, whatever, that says I just want the Republican Party. You can still do a write-in for any of those line items. So you can say I want Republican except governor, or I want Democrat except governor. I want Libertarian except governor. And you can put my name in, and it doesn't affect the rest of your ballot. So I'll say that. If you have a hard time remembering how to spell my name, go check social media. One of our volunteers has graciously lent her voice to a cover of the Oscar Mayer song, singing it with my name. So please go check that out.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, because one of the things we've been trying to share is that you are a write-in candidate, and explaining that to those within our groups is important for them to understand and to know what they're supposed to, what they need to look for and what they need to do.
Yep. And there should be a video on every social media platform. There should be a video that it shows the 2018 ballot. It's a sample ballot from the past because we can't see the one that's coming up, but it just shows a quick shot at the top, because governor is the highest level that's going to be on this ballot, and it shows that straight party, and then it shows the two governor options, and then it has a spot that says write-in. So learn how to spell my name, fill in the oval, and we're good to go at that point. And you can vote your conscience down the rest of the ballot.
Would you share with everybody how they can get involved in your campaign?
Yeah, I would love to. So there are several ways to do that. The biggest one is not the biggest one. The easiest one, I'll say, is social media. Engaging on things like this. If you like the various profiles, pick your favorite social media platform, follow the page there, and engage with content. And that helps from a technical standpoint. It helps the different platforms know that people like our content and is spreading that out further. And that's the easy ask. If you can, I know the group that I'm speaking to right now specifically, I know this is a hard ask. So, if you can, great. If you can't, I fully understand. Donations, it's the thing that, campaigns run off of money. That's how we pay for trips to Huntsville and Birmingham, and, going to the Break Every Chain rally on September 27th in Montgomery. It's that Monday. I think it's the 27th. Going to events like that take money. So if you can, cool. If not, I fully understand. And then the last one would be volunteering. So that is something we do different. We do all of our volunteer work is digitally distributed. This is my office, essentially. It's in my house, but we meet virtually every week. Tuesdays at 7 p.m. is our policy meeting. So if you want to talk about policy, stuff like this, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. we broadcast a stream just like this to every social media platform. You are welcome to come enjoy that and discuss the topic at hand. Saturdays from 9 to 10 is the campaign strategy meeting. So that's our internal strategy. It's a public broadcast, but we're talking about how the campaign can do better, what we've seen working, what isn't working, what we need to try moving forward. And then at 10 o'clock from 10 to 11 is a field organizing. So that's our boots on the ground meeting where we talk about what we can do in our areas, in our communities to get the word out. All of those are open to the public. So that's one way you can get involved more hands-on, showing up to the meetings and having discussions and giving us input. And the last and harder ask is actually applying to volunteer. So that we have a form that you can fill out. It asks a bunch of questions, and it feels like a job application that is intentional. Because anybody who is joining the team, we want to know that you're here to actually help. And it's not a fair weather engagement, right? It's not you're not showing up just to say you want to help. We want to know you're actually here. So if you can help on Friday mornings from August through October, put that on the form. If you can only help in October on Mondays and Thursdays, cool, let us know. whatever you do sign up for, please make sure that is what you're actually available for. And that's the only request there. That we're trying to get through those as quickly as possible. We had a large influx here recently, so we're still trying to work through those. That commitment, if something changes, we're aware. Life happens. So, if you have to back out, you have to back out. But try to make it as accurate as possible. And that's probably the way you can get back the most is actually volunteering with the campaign so that you can take on tasks. So we've talked about some things tonight, for instance, where I don't have the answer for that yet. The way we get answers is volunteers helping me out. I have limited time every day. So what I'm doing is what I would do as a governor is get people involved, have them do the research and present it, and then we make a decision from there. And that's part of what happens on policy meetings. So that those few things are the big ways to get involved. If you can't dedicate specific time, my request is to do what it sounds like you have been doing, which is talk to your communities, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family and friends generally about politics. This community, I know you already are. So this is kind of for everybody else. Talk to your community and friends, and if they're not happy with their options for governor specifically, let them know I exist. You don't have to argue on my behalf. Send them to my profile, let them look at the content that we're putting out. And if they're still not sure, or if you're still not sure, you can schedule a meeting similar to this on my website. So if there are specific questions you want to ask, you are welcome to schedule a meeting. It goes straight onto my calendar. You literally pick a day and time that works for you. If it's available for me, it puts it on the calendar and we have a meeting. My request, and then I will let you finish up. My request is that we do it publicly if you're comfortable giving that information publicly. So if you're going to talk about private info, I got it. We can do a private meeting. But if it's just general questions about policy, about prisons, about healthcare, education, pick a topic, I would prefer to do them publicly so that everyone can benefit from the conversation.
Well, I know for us, our people are across the state, and so we are spread out everywhere. And so I think for us, it would be helpful for us just to know how we can help. And so you've given us a lot of information and ideas, and I think there have been people answering in the chat box too about finding where you are for events and different things like that.
Yeah. So if I can, I will shamelessly plug a few that are coming up. So this Saturday, so August 6th, we will be in Huntsville from 2 until the park kicks us out, basically. We're going to stay out, or I get too tired and we have to leave. But we'll be there from 2 until sometime at Big Spring Park in Huntsville. So if you're in Huntsville or the Madison County area, and Huntsville's not too far of a drive, I would love to see you there. Look for a canopy and a big banner that has my name on it and a QR code. And then on Sunday, we'll be back in Birmingham for 2 events. We're going to go to Big Drag Brunch Energy at Ferris on 41st in Avondale. And that is from 12 to 3. And then afterwards, we will be at Railroad Park in Birmingham from 4 until 8. That has a hard cutoff due to the park requirements. But those are some events coming up. And then we have, if you're in the not in the Birmingham area, if you're in the Mobile area, August 27th, we're going to have a limited seating ticketed fundraiser event that will be held in a local venue here in Mobile, where we're going to have live music and come hang out in a kind of an intimate setting where we can just hang out and chat face to face. And I already mentioned the Break Every Chain event. That's not ours, but we're definitely attending it at the offices in front of ADOC on September 27th, if I have the date correctly. Please go look that up on Facebook. We're not the organizers. We're just showing up and going to be there for support. And I think Alice mentioned something that we do not need to forget, because it got mentioned at the very top of this recording, but October 24th is the cutoff to get registered to vote. If your birthday is anywhere between now and then, get registered as soon as possible. If you're already 18, literally go to the link in my bio on the profile you're watching this on, go to near the bottom of the page and just click register online and go ahead and just do it. Please don't put that off. We don't want to give them any reason to delay your registration.
That's exactly.
That's September 26th, Sherry. Is that what it is? Yeah, I think the Break Every Chain event, it looks like it's September 26th. So it's a Monday. Please go look that date up. Again, it's not our event, so I'm trying to go off memory here. So I apologize if I got the date wrong. please look it up and attend if you can. It is a Monday, but that's the point. We have to be there when they're there. Otherwise, there's no point in talking. They're not there to listen if we're not there on a weekday. So.
I think that's all I have for tonight.
Okay.
But I mean, I can keep coming up with questions, and I can send you more questions as I'm sure I will receive some.
Yeah.
And if you would like to do this again with us, just let me or one of the others know, and we will gladly do this with you again.
Yeah, the invite is always welcome. Yeah, so if somebody hears about this and didn't get to ask their question, or somehow we missed it, I'm really sorry if we did. Please get in touch with Dr. Hancock, and we can set up another one. I'm happy to do this again. We only have 3 main focuses for the campaign. Again, healthcare, education, and the prison system. And this one is this is the one that I will always make time for. I care about healthcare and education. If somebody wants to present information, I am always ready to listen to those as well. But the prison system is the one that, this is what I'm trying to instill in everybody. What people don't think about, everyday people, right? They hear prison system and they think, oh, well, that's just people that are incarcerated. And I'm like, yeah, but all of us are one new or unknown law away from being a criminal. Like it's a very quick and easy shift to make anybody a criminal. Like we just did it a month ago. Like it's really easy just to change. When I say really easy, like it's not as hard as we would think to turn anybody into a criminal. So that it affects everybody, or can easily affect everybody in our state. And it's the one of those 3 that once it impacts you, you have very little recourse in adjusting that. Healthcare and education, potentially you just move and get better healthcare, get better education, get a better job, whatever it is. The prison system, not so much. That is not up to you anymore. You are now in there, and your say doesn't mean anything currently because the system doesn't treat you like a human. So I will always make time. Sandy, yes, the plan is to expand Medicaid. I haven't found anything that says I can't just say yes. So unless somebody tells me that I can't once I'm in office, the answer is yes. We will expand Medicaid and accept the additional funding that, for whatever reason, our current administration and the prior administrations have not accepted. Cool. Well, I think that's it. So we don't have any other questions rolling in. I think we're set. And I'm going to end the live here. You can hang on for a minute afterwards if you want to chat, but I'm going to end the live. So again, policy meeting is on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Strategy meetings are Saturday at 9. Field operations are from 10 to 11 on Saturdays. Please attend those if you want to have any kind of input or hear what we're thinking on a week